Steven.
And I'm Kendall. Welcome to our Gearhead field test for the all-new Yeti MTe e-mountain bike.
Yeah, we've been testing this out for the last couple weeks and we're stoked to talk about it.
This is an all-new bike from Yeti that just came out today, and it's jam-packed with new features. And this video has chapter timestamps below, so you can skip around if you need to.
Let's get into it.
This new bike from Yeti has 145 millimeters of rear travel and 160 millimeters of fork travel.
Yeah, and we'd consider this a super light or SL bike. Weights range from 38 pounds to 44 pounds.
All three of the stock builds come in 29-inch front and rear wheel configurations, but Yeti does say that it's compatible with a mixed wheel setup if you want to convert it on your own. And there's actually there's a flip chip that is only for wheel size, so it helps keep the geometry of the bike in its intended form if you switch between mixed wheel and full 29er setup.
The C2 and T3 builds feature a TQ power unit with a 580 watt-hour battery.
That's right, and then the T4 build has a 290 watt-hour battery, so it's cool because the builds give you different options for pedal assisted power.
So all builds are compatible with an aftermarket range extender, which we love to see.
Yeah, that is rad to see. One interesting thing about this bike is that Yeti actually says that the size small bikes are not compatible with the range extender, so we'd love to see that compatibility sometime in the future, but that's the case for now.
Yeah, so this bike runs on the Sixfinity rear linkage design, like Yeti's existing e-bikes, the 160E.
That's right, yeah, it's pretty much a 6-bar design, which I think rides great, and I'm super excited about seeing it on this bike. Another cool feature about this bike is it has a leverage rate flip chip. It's right at the bottom of the shock mount, and this allows you to adjust the shock's progressivity with 2 designated positions.
Yeti is selling aftermarket headset cups that can adjust head tube angle and reach, but these are not included. So let's move into geometry. So the numbers are pretty tame on this bike, other than the chainstay.
The reach is 480 millimeters, which is pretty on par with what we're seeing across the industry.
Yeah, the head tube angle sits at 64 degrees. It's a pretty standard kind of trail bike angle.
Right on, and then yeah, the wheelbase is 1273 in this size large, which sounds pretty standard, but if you compare it to its analog sibling, the SB140, it's actually like 30 full millimeters longer. So, I mean, yeah, Yeti is definitely making this bike a little bit more aggressive compared to the standard analog version.
So the outlier here is really the chainstay, which sits at roughly 449 millimeters, and that's across all sizes.
Yeah, so overall, I'd say the geometry of the bike is pretty mild-mannered, with the chainstay definitely being the #1 outlier, and then the wheelbase being fairly long as well. Yeah. But this is going to give the bike really good stability, which we'll get into when we talk about descending. Steven, what are the color options for the MTe?
Yeah, so we have Midnight, which is right behind me, and then we also have the kind of traditional Yeti turquoise.
Right on, and then as far as sizing goes for this bike, there are 4 sizing options. It's small through extra large, and that small is not compatible with the aftermarket range extender, so be sure you check that before you get it.
All right, Kendall, so what are the build options?
So there are 3 total builds for this bike. We have the C2, the T3, and the T4. The C2 build is going to come with Yeti's C-level carbon, so it's a slight weight penalty compared to the T builds, which come with the T-level carbon.
Yeah, and the T4 comes in at 38 pounds.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that comes with the 290 watt-hour battery as well.
Yeah, so that's how they're cutting all that weight out.
Yeah, so the T3 behind me comes in at 43 pounds, and the C2 comes in right above that at 44 pounds.
Yeah, so even those bikes are pretty light, especially considering that they have the bigger 580 watt-hour battery. While we're talking about weights, should we weigh this thing?
Yeah.
So the stated weight, I think, is 43.4 pounds. This one has pedals on it. Oh, I'm going to say 44 pounds and 10 ounces.
I'm going 45 flat.
45 even.
Yeah.
All right, so we're both going over. All right, let's see. All right, just leveled out at 45 pounds and 5 ounces. You're the clear winner. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In your first video.
Yeah.
Moving on to climbing, this bike features a TQ drive unit. TQ has been making drive units for a little while. I mean, you see them on other bikes, but this drive unit is new, and neither of us have ever ridden a TQ drive unit before, so it was a kind of a first experience all around. Tell us about the modes. Yeah,
so this features 3 different modes: Eco, Trail, and Turbo. We also have a walk mode as well for this.
Yeah, that's right. And then it has like a super nice display. I was really impressed, especially compared to like some other brands that are just doing like lights on the top tube. Gives you a bunch more information. It gives you a battery percentage, which I think is really nice, rather than just like 1/4, like 1/2, 3/4. You know, it's like a little bit more precise. And then you can change modes right on the handlebar, which is sweet.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger than most e-bikes.
Yeah. yeah, really, really nice to just get some data at a glance there.
Yeah, so this is pretty dependent on the cadence at which you pedal versus where like a Bosch motor, it's a bit more power, but this is kind of dictated by where you are in the gears.
Exactly, yeah. I found myself shifting more on it compared to some other systems, but I also kind of like that. It's more intuitive when you're coming from analog bikes.
I like that too, especially with climbing. There's times with e-bikes, it kind of feels like you're getting pushed back a little bit, or that front wheel wants to lift up, where this is kind of stable when climbing.
Totally. And then how did you feel like the rear end tracked? Were you a fan of the 6-bar on those technical climbs we did?
I was, and this is the first time riding 6-bar. I loved it, yeah.
Yeah, or Sixfinity rather, but yeah, no, I really like the way it rides as well. I feel like I was scooting up some pretty hairy stuff today, honestly. So we have yet to hear the specific power and torque numbers for this bike, but I definitely felt like it had sufficient power. I was pretty impressed, especially for how light it is. We both towed each other at some point today with an analog bike behind using a tow strap. How did you feel like the bike did in that scenario?
Yeah, I think it did well. You know, it wasn't like super crazy having someone behind you. It felt like pretty easy, and the climbing was relatively quick. Obviously, we're on an e-bike, but still carrying someone behind you.
Yeah, it definitely causes you to go through the battery a little bit quicker, as you might guess. I think we did about 10 miles today, and maybe like 6 and change of those were climbing, and all the climbing we did some towing, and we used like, I think we got down to like 60-something% by the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe a little less than that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's to be expected, especially with, you know, a sub 600 watt hour battery. Like it's just going to happen if you're towing somebody.
Yeah.
One cool thing that I like about all super light e-bikes, and this one as well, is that it makes picking your way through those technical climbs a little bit more intuitive, especially if you're used to riding technical climbs on an analog bike. It's like, rather than just like relying on the pedal assist and like, you know, using only momentum to get up and over things, it's like you can actually like stand up, put power to the pedals, and obviously you're getting help. But yeah, the climbing experience, because of less weight, less power, it's a little bit more like regular biking and a little bit less like moto.
Yeah, it's a bit more nimble.
Yeah, exactly. And you can kind of do those back and forth moves a little bit easier. I mean, you have pedal assist, obviously that part feels different, but the weight really isn't that far off.
Yeah.
So we've finally gotten to the part of the video where we get to talk about how the bike goes downhill. What are your first impressions?
Yeah, so I like this a lot. Typically, I ride a medium. I'm 5'10" for reference. I was on a large for this one, and I liked the longer wheelbase. Super stable at speed. I would say the one thing I would like is if this build came stock with a mixed wheel. I think it'd just be a bit more playful on the downhill, but overall, I do like how this handled.
Yeah, I think it eats up the bumps really well. I think that long chainstay, the longer wheelbase, definitely like gives you confidence, makes you want to dig your heels in, which I think is impressive on a super light e-bike, because it's not like you have this big like 50+ pound machine that just plows through everything. Like, this is actually the suspension doing the work, right? Not just the weight of the bike itself. So yeah, I was pumped. I'm a big fan of Sixfinity, and I'm excited to spend some more time on it. And I'm really curious about the 160e now as well.
Yeah.
What about cornering? Do you feel like the bike tracks predictably?
It corners relatively well. I think there could be some improvements made on that front.
Yeah, I think it corners probably better in like a downhill at speed kind of track setting than it does like a big bike park berm.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, the mixed wheel setup would help a lot there. But like riding it down one of my favorite enduro trails, like I feel like it was pretty predictable to get the bike to track and kind of straighten out the trail a little bit when it's like a less manicured trail. So I appreciated it for that scenario for sure. All right, Steven, imagine this. You get the keys to the Yeti design room and you can change anything you want about this bike. What are your improvement points?
Yeah, so again, just having that mixed wheel out of the box, I think would be great for this, especially with cornering and ascending. A little bit more playful, and with this being an SL build, you know, and being super light, I think that would be great. And kind of flipping the question to you, if you could change one or a couple things, what would it be?
That's what I've been thinking about, is the fork choice for this bike. I mean, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get weight down. It's a super light bike, and people are looking at those stated weight numbers for a bike like this. That being said, like for something that weighs over 40 pounds, I think you gotta go with a 38 mil stanchion fork. But it's also nice how light it feels on the trail. So like, I see what they're doing. I think it's just personal preference on my end.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining.
Let us know in the comments if you would like to try this new Yeti MTe, or if you'd stick with the tried and true 160e.
And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video.
In the meantime, please reach out to a Gearhead if you have any questions about this bike or any others from the Yeti line.
Till then, see you out there.
Cheers.